Hello everyone and welcome back to Mossy Bottom. As I'm sure you all know, I live on a 1-acre homestead here in the west of Ireland, where I've kept chickens, ducks, rabbits and pigs for 6 years now. The question which I get asked, as well as this fella of course, the question which I get asked more than any other is whether I eat my animals. But to give that question a one-word answer or even a one-line answer is to ignore all the consideration which a subject so important deserves. Vegan or carnivore? Is it really that black and white? Well, I know for a lot of people it is, but not for me. And in this video, I want to try and explain why. First of all, let me say, what this video is not is an attempt to influence anyone else's view. As with so many other important choices in life, I believe that we should all have the right as citizens of this world to form our own opinion, however nuanced that might be, and to follow the path which is right for us as individuals. After all, that belief is why I'm here, living in such an unconventional way. I grew up eating meat, usually once a day, but I suspect we would have had it more often if my parents could have afforded it. And I'm rather ashamed to say that during that period of my life, the meat and animal products which I saw on the supermarket shelves and grocery stores, and which I consumed, were completely distinct in my mind from the many animals which I shared my life with. We kept many pets and we were surrounded by farmland, so I had regular contact with animals. Of course, I knew the connection, but I didn't internalise it because it was easier not to. In my 20s, moving to cities for work, I realised something which for me was quite profound. That although I don't believe it's wrong to eat animal products, after all, lions eat antelopes, is that wrong? Worms digest dead bodies, is that wrong? Humans are a product and part of nature too. But I do think it's wrong to mistreat life, any life. And turning animals into a commodity in which the principal goal is profit or commercial gain is just fundamentally unethical. So based on that belief, which I still very much hold to this day, I made the decision back then to stop buying farmed meat. For the last decade, I haven't bought or eaten any meat from supermarkets or grocery stores, or even restaurants, not that I frequent those very often, alas. But I must come back to the point that I do not believe it's wrong to eat meat or animal products. It is the mistreatment of those animals during their lives which for me is the problem. Let's talk about chickens. I've kept these lovely, charismatic, highly social animals since the very first year that I moved here. And as the years have gone by, I've made various changes to better meet their needs. Chickens have evolved to live in small family groups with both hens and cockerels, and you'll see a mixture here, of different ages in which every bird knows every other bird and a very strict hierarchy or pecking order exists. And that's something I'm able to create on my homestead, which simply cannot exist on a commercial farm, even a free-range or organic one, because they house thousands of identical birds of identical ages in the same space. Chickens are jungle species. They've evolved to live in diverse habitats with a mix of rocky grassland and, crucially, trees and bushes and shrubs which they forage under and roost in at night. Again, that's something which on my homestead I've been able to recreate. On a commercial farm, chickens get vast barns, and if they're lucky, they might also have access to flat grassland for a part of the day. That's what a free-range chicken is. In the wild, chickens are thought to live between 3 and 7 years on average. The average lifespan of a broiler or meat chicken is just 6 weeks. The reason they can be processed at such a young age is because they've been selectively bred and modified to grow unnaturally fast, irrespective of the pain which that's known to cause them. Why? Well, to keep costs down, both for the farmer and the consumer. Is organic better? Yes, but only marginally. 10 to 12 weeks is the average lifespan for an organic broiler. It's not much better, is it, really? Bear in mind that a chicken isn't considered fully grown or adult until it's a year old. It all comes down to money, and that's why when life becomes a commodity, it can never really be ethical to consume the product of that. On a homestead, you can choose not to cull hens when their egg production slows at around 3 years old. I certainly don't, never have. And you can choose to keep young cockerels alive for as long as they would live in the wild, at least a few years. You can see a young cockerel right there. Of course, it's not perfect. There are always compromises, like for instance the need for an enclosure. Mine is about 100 square meters, without which I couldn't possibly grow outdoor vegetables because the chickens would destroy them. But I believe the animals that I keep on my homestead would rather live than not live, for the simple reason that their instincts are being met, and I cannot with any degree of confidence say that of animals, of lives kept within commercial agriculture, even if it's organic. Now, that's not to say that every animal on every homestead has a great life, because different people make different choices. Just that when the bottom line is, well, I suppose the bottom line, money, it is such a conflict of interests that welfare and ethical standards will never really be what they should. That's my view, and since moving here, it's only strengthened. So, does that mean that living on a homestead, as I do, that I eat my animals? Well, for the most part, no. The first time I raised chickens from eggs here, I did in the end humanely kill and eat several of the cockerels, because they reached an age, about 2, in which they were fighting, and it became clear from the injuries they were sustaining and inflicting on each other with their spurs kicking, that if I didn't intervene it would result in them dying, and in a very unpleasant way too. But those cockerels got to live a natural life for a number of years first, and died at a similar age or even older to cockerels in the wild. These days I'm able to rehome cockerels, so I don't have to kill them. But those I have in the past, well, I was extremely grateful for and used every part of. The meat I ate, and yes, I enjoyed. It was a real treat, which is what meat used to be, and I think should still be for us humans, a rare treat. The bones I ground up, and along with most of the organs, Moss enjoyed. Even the feathers I saved and used to make animal bedding, and mackerel lures for fishing. Interestingly, killing those cockerels, well, for me it wasn't an emotional act, and that's because I knew that they'd had such a great life. And I saw the joy that they felt from the day of their birth right through their adolescence and adulthood. Pulling up giant worms from the soil, plucking fruit from a tree, sunbathing in a mud bath in the summer, mating a hen, or just nestled up together on a high perch at night. And so when it came to the end point, I didn't feel guilty or uncertain. I was focused on ensuring that they felt no pain and were completely unaware of that process. And that makes me reflect on my own life, and indeed my own death. Because death, an end point, will come to all of us, human, animal and plant. And I personally feel that in death, the greatest thing I can do is give something back to nature. If my body, which once I'm dead is just stored energy and matter, could be fed to chickens or pigs or returned to nature in some way, providing nourishment and energy that sustains and even enables new life, then what a wonderful thing to be able at the very end to actually give something back. If I'd had a good, fulfilled life, I wouldn't resent that for a second. And although I'll never know for sure, I believe the same is true of every animal here at Mossy Bottom, my homestead. Which begs the question, why then don't I eat more of my own animals? The pigs, the rabbits, the ducks in the background. As someone who ardently believes that it's not wrong to eat meat or animal products just to mistreat life, why wouldn't I, on a small holding like mine, raise animals for meat? Well, there are several reasons. One, I develop relationships with the animals in my care. They have individual characters and idiosyncrasies, which I'd miss tremendously. Animals do, when living on a homestead, become companions. That's one of the great privileges of being able to keep them. Two, I don't need to eat meat to be happy or to be healthy. I eat eggs from my chickens, I eat wild fish which I catch myself with a rod and line. I get protein aplenty from seeds and nuts which I grow. I'm not lacking anything nutritionally, so why should I go through the process of killing when I don't need to? 3. Raising animals for meat is highly inefficient. It's said that a single acre of good quality land can raise enough plant-based food to feed 10 people. That same single acre would be just about enough to sustain a single cow. That certainly wouldn't feed one person year-round, let alone 10. To raise a chick from an egg to a 2-year-old adult chicken takes an awful lot of vegetables, grass and purchased grains, which I can't grow, I don't have enough land. It takes a lot of work to provide them with water every day, clean out their coop, build and replace their fence, treat them when they're unwell, and ensure they're safe and happy. If I were to raise chickens for meat in a truly ethical way, like the way I do keep them here, then it would cost me about €18 per bird in purchased grain alone for the winter. Yes, I did do the maths. At Mossy Bottom, I don't have enough land to grow winter feed on the scale which I would need it to mitigate that cost. If you do have the land on your homestead and time to self-produce things like oats, barley or other grains as an animal feed for the winter, then that cost would be greatly reduced. But in my view, it still doesn't make sense to invest so much time, care and attention to raising animals the right way, the natural way, only to kill them for no other reason than a quick meal. That chicken is worth far more to me as an egg layer, or in the case of a cockerel, as a father and protector, than it ever could be as a meal. Number 4. The environmental footprint of raising animals for meat is far higher than it is for plants and eggs. 1 kilogram of protein from free-range chicken eggs releases about 0.2 kilograms of carbon. The equivalent weight of protein in chicken meat releases a whopping 12.27 kilograms of carbon. And if you're wondering what that figure looks like for beef, between 60 and 80 kilograms of carbon. For brassicas, like the many which I grow, 0.4 kilograms of carbon. Potatoes, 0.3. And yes, these numbers will vary based on individual practices. In an organic system like mine, brassicas and potatoes will be a fraction of that number. But taken as a rough comparison, meat versus eggs versus veg, it does paint a very telling picture. So, although I do believe it's possible to raise animals for meat on a homestead in an ethical way, it certainly isn't economically or environmentally viable by comparison to raising plants and animal products like eggs. So in terms of animal products, what do I eat? Well, as I've mentioned, I eat a great many chicken and duck eggs from my own birds. And I eat fish, which I catch myself inshore on a rod and line. I'm very lucky to live near the wild Atlantic coast here in Ireland, which during the summer months is rich in mackerel, pollock and other species. Again, this is a scenario in which I don't think it makes sense to apply black and white principles when it comes to the consumption of meat. The fish that I catch are not farmed. Being wild, their lives could not be more natural. And fishing inshore with a rod and line makes that practice vastly more environmentally sustainable than commercial fishing, which is a whole other topic. But for me, it comes down to the same thing. Judge each scenario on its own merit. Is it ethical? Is it sustainable? Is it economical? And now folks, for the part of this video which I am most passionate to share with you. Everyone will make their own choice when it comes to meat consumption and sustainability. But there is something fundamental which I believe has been largely forgotten when it comes to our relationship with animals. On a homestead like mine, there is a third choice. They don't have to be meat, they don't have to be pets. If you understand the behaviour of livestock, their needs and limitations, and what they can bring to you, then you can keep them as working companions, leading rich, fulfilled lives, as well as enriching and fulfilling your life and your families. None of my animals are pets, including Moss, my border collie, and the cats. But that doesn't mean to say I have to mistreat them or turn them into a commodity. So what are they for? What function does each animal I keep serve on my small holding? Let's take a tour so I can show you. Firstly, the chickens. Well, as I've mentioned multiple times now, I keep egg-laying chicken breeds to provide me with delicious organic eggs. And yes, because I only have an acre of land here at Mossy Bottom, I do have to buy some chicken feed over the winter. But the value of eggs which they lay far exceeds the cost of that animal feed. And I can sell additional eggs locally, such as on my stall, if I need to pay for additional costs like feed. People often ask me if they escape from these low fences, and yes they do, but they never stray more than a few meters, which I think is testament to the fact that they're quite happy here. Next, the rabbits. And what people don't realise about rabbits is just how incredibly potent their poop is. It has 4 times the nutrient value to vegetables of horse or cow manure, and twice that of chicken manure. And unlike horse, cow or chicken manure, rabbit poop does not need to be composted before it can be used as a fertiliser. In the tractors, they have portability and turn grass, which I'd otherwise have to cut, directly into usable fertiliser. In these large open areas, they have a lot of space to run and jump, and a natural underground warren, which I built for them to live in. Now for my ducks, and you can see behind me one is nesting. And much like my chickens, ducks are regular layers of large eggs, as many as 250 per bird per year. They're more calorific than chicken eggs, and I think just as delicious. My ducks also provide excellent slug control. The key is to choose a breed known for foraging, like khaki Campbells or Indian runners, and then only unleash them on your vegetable area when the plants are mature enough to take a bit of a peck, like during the autumn and winter. Ducks are also incredibly hardy animals, especially in the Irish climate. When it rains, and it does that a lot here, and all my other beasties run for cover, these lovelies come out and have a quacking good time. Isn't it interesting how they cover themselves in straw and feathers to try and camouflage, which in the wild would be such an important thing to avoid predators. Finally, the pigs, which of course are my organic ploughs. They turn this, an area in the background, into this, which if you want to plant potatoes or vegetable seedlings is really quite handy. And chickens will superficially make ground look like this, but the difference is chickens don't dig, whereas pigs do, because they seek out all those tasty roots. My 2 coonies here will quite literally turn an area like this into bare soil in a couple of months, and this is a 50 square metre area. And they'll be blissfully happy doing it too. And it may look a bit bare and barren now, but I regularly give them feed. Every day they get something extra. And I don't want to overfeed them. I don't want them to become fat and complacent, because then they won't dig. Pigs will always take the easiest option when it comes to food, so if you make sure they have to do a bit of work to get it, they will, and they'll be happy doing it. And of course, what they're also doing is pooping back, fertilising the ground, the soil, and adding organic matter back into it at the same time. Just what's needed for next year's vegetable crop. Pigs will also eat any food waste, including root vegetables, but I have to admit they do cost me quite a bit in oats and barley and pig feed during the winter, especially with grain prices increasing so much as they have of late. But for me, it's a price worth paying, because they save me a lot of back-breaking labour, and because I really value their company immensely. They're such lovely animals. And you? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So to answer the question, meat or pet, well, on a homestead like mine, the answer is neither. These animals are working companions. I get all the pleasure of their company while giving them what I believe to be an ethical, natural life. As close to nature as is realistically possible. And of course, the interconnected system that is Mossy Bottom is able to function precisely because of what they give back. These vegetable areas behind me have been ploughed by the pigs prior to being replanted. To do that myself would have been a huge amount of work. They've also been fertilised thanks to all the manure produced by all my animals. Finally, I'm not a dogmatic person. I'm learning all the time, and my knowledge and practices have and will continue to evolve as the years go by, which I think is how life should be lived. It's not static after all. Being open to learn from the day of our birth until the day we die is one of the greatest qualities a person can have. Thank you for watching. From me, from all the animals here in the west of Ireland, take care and bye for now. Oh, I was born in a Quaker town where folks worked good and hard for the ones they loved and God above. Each day they punched their card, and when evening came back home again, they'd rest a while and say, "'Tis a hard old life, but for kids and wife we'll work as another day." When the sun rose low, back to work they'd go, singing on their way. Oh, for job and home to call our own, we'll work as another day. Oh, the tricky thing when you create a chicken-friendly enclosure with lots of trees and shrubs is getting in and out of it.